Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the high-level public speaking masterclass for entrepreneurs, business executives, and the future leaders of the world. This is a presentation I put together to give you some tips on how to make your next presentation, pitch, or speech the best one that you've ever done, as well as some tips on how to present on a stage, and some executive communication strategies that I've mastered along the way as a performing artist and public speaker to help you command respect and be perceived as an authority in your field. My name is Muhammad Hijazi. Let's get right into it. Public speaking is a superpower. It is more than just talking in front of a crowd, which is what most people would assume it is. In reality, it is the key to leadership and success beyond your wildest dreams. Why is public speaking the ultimate business and career booster? Well, I'm glad you asked. By becoming a high-level public speaker and executive communicator, you master the 6 levers of power when it comes to your voice. And those levers of power are persuade, pitch, mobilize, influence, authority, and control. We're going to go in depth on each one and what it can do to transform your business or professional career. Persuade. Sell your product to customers. By becoming an expert public speaker, you have essentially mastered the heart of any sales process, which is building a connection with your prospects and clearly articulating the value of the product or service that you are offering. And this will allow you to turn those prospects into paying customers with absolute ease, all because you have mastered the ability to speak and communicate at a high level. The next lever is pitch, which is like persuasion, but this time you're going to be selling your ideas to investors. When you are pitching something, you are asking for buy-in from stakeholders and other investors, similar to the show Shark Tank. And if you've noticed, every successful pitcher on that show has shown proficiency in public speaking and executive communication. This is how they are able to convince stakeholders to support their vision, and this can mean the difference between a missed opportunity and secured capital. Mobilize. Moving people to take action. Again, all successful public speakers have mastered this, the ability to mobilize others to go in one direction. Whether you lead a team, address a large audience, or you're advocating for political change, it is all the same. You are rallying an audience towards a common goal or vision. And this is a characteristic of all successful CEOs, activists, politicians, and cult leaders, all of whom have mastered the superpower that is their voice. The fourth lever is influence, which is building a strong personal brand. When you get up on the stage, or when you talk to people in person, you must be able to clearly communicate your values and your mission and what you stand for as a business executive or an entrepreneur. And this is the secret to modern business success. I've listed below some examples, such as Huberman Lab, Andrew Tate, and Alex Hormozi. And through their public speaking, through the way that they're able to communicate their values and mission to their ideal audience, it enables them to build a strong connection with that audience, which will inevitably attract opportunities and leads left and right. The next lever is authority, which is what you need to become an expert in your field. A lot of things are about perception, and your ability to public speak is going to definitely impact that for the better. Because when you can speak with conviction, you can earn the trust of potential customers or partnerships. Your voice will command respect, and you will effectively become a thought leader when you are perceived as an authority in your field. And this is what we're going to work on today when we talk about executive communication. Finally, control, which is the art of dominating difficult conversations. This, more often than not, is going to be utilized off the stage in those nuanced on-the-spot discussions, maybe with the board of directors, maybe with your peers. You're going to need to learn how to negotiate, address conflict, and handle criticism. And all of these require that you stay composed and in control to achieve those desired outcomes without letting emotions take over. So these are the 6 levels of power that you can leverage once you have become a high-level public speaker and executive communicator. In this course, we're going to walk you through some tips on how to structure a powerful presentation or speech. We're also going to cover techniques to captivate any audience as far as your vocal delivery and body language. We're also going to cover advanced communication strategies to lead, influence, and persuade. And I'll be including a special offer. Structuring a powerful presentation, pitch, or speech. Every successful and powerful presentation, speech, or pitch follows the PSA framework, which is problem, solution, action. I encourage you to adopt this PSA framework in the next presentation that you create in order to maximize the value that your audience gets from it and to maximize the ability to deliver effectively. The first part is the problem. This should always answer the question, why do I care, as soon as possible by creating a hook. This is how you tell your audience, why do I care about what you're saying? Why am I here? What can I expect to hear from you in this presentation? And a pro tip, a good way to answer this question is by telling a story or asking a powerful question. You always want to answer this question as soon as you possibly can. The next part of the PSA framework is solution, which should always answer the question, how can I fix this? You want to give an answer to the problem statement by giving demonstrations, examples, proof, and case studies. And this is the most important part of your presentation. It is the most content heavy. It is where all of the selling takes place. It is where the proof takes place. This is the meat and potatoes. So you want to go as in-depth as possible to answer the question, how can I fix this? Similar to what I'm doing to you in this presentation, I established a problem or a question that I posed, which is why public speaking is so important. And now I'm providing you with the solution, which is practical content geared to help you do better in your next presentation. Finally, you want to turn that attention into action. How? By outlining next steps. You want to answer the question, what do I do now? Once you've told them why they care and informed them on how you can fix it, you need to be able to go somewhere with that. You need to be able to turn that attention and interest into action. This is how you capitalize on your public speaking skills. If you do not give the audience an action or a takeaway, then you'll find yourself very frustrated when no action comes as a result of your speech. You always want to outline next steps, whether that is directing your audience towards new information to get more informed, whether that's sending them down a sales funnel to learn more about your product. It could be anything, but make sure you have a clear action for your audience to answer the question, what do I do now? Clear, concise, and results-driven. Every successful presentation follows this framework, including this one. Have you watched Shark Tank? Like I mentioned before, every successful Shark Tank pitch follows this framework. They start with the problem, give you a solution, and then they give you the action, which is usually an ask on behalf of the presenter. Here's a quick action step, like I mentioned in the PSA framework. You're going to want to take 5 minutes to outline your next presentation using this framework after watching this, and proceed to wow people with your skills, because you're going to eliminate that fluff and that filler, similar to what I've done with my students in this program. Vocal delivery will be our next section. Vocal delivery entails not what you say, but how you say it. Your vocal delivery will dictate how your audience receives your message. And this is very important because you want to make sure what goes into their ears is what you want them to hear. It is just as important, if not more important, than the content itself. And this is actually what separates the amateurs from the pros. So let's get right into it. There are 3 pillars to commanding your voice to improve your vocal delivery on your next presentation, pitch, or speech. The first one being tone. What is tone? Tone is the emotional expression that is conveyed through your voice. It reflects the speaker's attitude and it sets the atmosphere for the audience. For example, you can have a playful tone when you're talking, and that'll have your audience open up and it'll make them feel very interested and comfortable around you. Or you can have a more serious tone, which commands a certain level of respect, and it shows the audience that this is no place for jokes. The skills to master in this area are intensity and pitch of your voice. These are the two things that control the tone. Why is tone so hard to use in speeches, and why do you see people poorly using it? Well, first and foremost, there is a lack of an actual emotional connection with the audience. So that needs to be broken down first. If you lack an emotional connection with your audience, you might not care enough to affect them emotionally, and they might not care enough about you to feel emotionally connected. So this is a two-way street. You want to try and garner that emotional connection as soon as possible, which we will share some techniques on that later. The second reason for poor use of tone is neglecting vocal dynamics, which makes you sound very monotone and makes people, quite frankly, hate listening to you. This is what you want to avoid doing. You want to use your tone in order to avoid being monotone so that you can give your audience a sort of emotional reaction. Finally, you do not want to misjudge your audience by failing to read the room. Again, there is no place for jokes and playful attitude when you are talking about a very serious subject matter. On the flip side, there is no room for being serious when the tone of the room should be a little bit more playful. So always make sure you read the room in order to make sure that your tone is appropriate for your audience. The second pillar of commanding your voice to increase your authority in your next presentation, pitch, or speech is volume. Volume, as you know, is how loud or soft your voice is. It is critical in order to be heard and understood, and it can be used to add dramatic effect. The skill to master here is projection, and you want to make sure that your audience is able to hear what you are saying. The last thing you want is for them to not understand what you said simply because you didn't raise your voice loud enough. Now, why are people struggling to use volume in their presentations? First one is poor breath control. When you don't pay attention to your voice, when you don't pay attention to your breath, when you don't pay attention to how much air is in your lungs, then your volume will suffer. So you want to make sure that you are controlling your breath in order to better utilize your voice and increase or decrease your volume as seen appropriate. The second tip I have to avoid using your volume poorly is to speak from your stomach. Do not speak from your throat. When you speak from your diaphragm, using diaphragmatic breathing, you actually command more control of your vocal cords and of your volume. But when you speak from your throat, especially for a prolonged amount of time, it starts to hurt, and your voice does not carry the same amount of bass. So try speaking from your stomach. Third, a lack of confidence. Simply put, if you're not confident, you will not raise your voice. You will likely be very quiet, and that will reflect in your volume. So make sure that you take the right steps necessary to be prepared so that you can be confident and so that this isn't the reason why your volume is not where it needs to be. The third pillar of commanding your voice that I would like to share with you all today is pacing, which is the rate at which you speak. It could be very quick or it could be very slow. Pacing is how quickly or slowly you speak. It maintains clarity and audience engagement. The two skills to master in this realm are preparation and pausing. So you want to avoid a few things. The first thing you want to avoid is speaking too fast, because you're not going to give your audience enough time to digest what you are giving them. In fact, some important things might fly right over their head because you went too fast. Also, you don't want to go too slow because then you're going to bore them. And also, you want to be well prepared. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Why do people struggle to have poor pacing in their presentations? The first and foremost reason is nervousness and anxiety. A lot of people just want to get it over with. They don't want to be on that stage or in front of that audience or in front of that board meeting or in front of those investors that they're pitching to any longer than they have to be. So what they do to compensate is speed up their speech. And it actually comes off as very anxious, and your audience can tell. They can tell when you're anxious up there. The second reason that people are not able to pace themselves well is over-reliance on memorization or a script. And when this happens, you kind of get robotic in your delivery. You lose that conversational flow. As you can see in this presentation that I'm sharing with you, I have bullet points, but I'm not necessarily following a word-for-word script. And I bet you if I was, I would get lost in the sauce trying to say every single word how I had it written, instead of trying to connect with my audience and starting a flow of conversation with them. So never, never, never rely on your memorization of a script. And finally, a lack of practice is likely the reason that you have poor pacing in your presentations. Because if you don't practice and you have a 10-minute limit, you might go over because you speak too slow, or you might go under because you spoke too fast. So a good way to combat this is to simply time yourself. This leads me to the quick action step per the PSA framework based on your weakness. If tone is your weakness, record your next speech. Record and analyze, okay, how did my tone come off? What emotion am I evoking? Am I evoking a happy tone? Am I evoking a playful tone? Am I evoking a serious tone? A concerned tone, maybe? Is it an angry tone? Which one is it? What am I triggering my audience to feel? And is it appropriate for the audience? If volume is your weak point, then you're going to want to use diaphragmatic breathing. I hope I said that right. Use diaphragmatic breathing, speak from your stomach, and make sure you control your breath so that you can command more bass from your voice, and make sure that your voice reaches your audience's ears. Finally, you want to utilize pacing. How do you utilize pacing? Use a timer for your next speech. If 10 minutes is your mark, simply click on a timer and practice again and again and again until you find the rate at which your pacing will pay off for you. And this is a very practical way to combat speaking too fast or too slow. This next section I'm going to cover is the art of body language. Body language is very important when you are giving a presentation because more than half of communication is actually non-verbal. The question I pose to you all is, how can you use body language to command attention and engage with your audience? It's actually simpler than you think. Many people believe that the words they say are what people pay attention to. That's halfway right. In reality, your body language speaks to them first. And some proof of this is when you walk up to a stranger on the street, your body will give you a physiological response based on that person's body language. If they have closed and suspicious body language or they're reaching into their pockets, you're going to be a little bit more worried. But if that person is dressed nice and they have their shoulders back, arms open, and they're welcoming in their demeanor, then your body will command a completely different physiological response. And this is the same for any presentation. Your audience will mirror your body language. Here are 6 body language hacks that you can use in your next presentation, pitch, or speech. In order of importance, the first one, of course, is eye contact. Look at your audience. If you do not look at them, they might not look at you. And if you don't look at them, you might not care about them. And if you don't look at them, they might not care about you. You have to establish that emotional connection like we covered earlier in the presentation. By looking at one person at a time during your next presentation or pitch, you are likely to increase engagement on behalf of the audience and credibility because they will feel like they can trust you. These are subconscious tips that help them open up to you. The second one is strong posture. What do I mean by strong posture? Well, your posture sets the tone for the entire presentation because your confidence begets authority and respect. Like I said, closed body language, slouching, probably not going to command that much respect. But if you have your shoulders back, your chest up, no slouching or leaning, you have a smile on your face, and you try to avoid fidgeting, That projects strong posture, which in turn projects confidence, which begets authority and respect, which is why you are watching this presentation, because as a business executive, you want to beget authority and respect in your field. So have some strong posture. The next body hack is facial expressions. Now, this is used in conjunction with your tone. It communicates emotions that can align with and amplify your message. Just make sure that you keep your audience interested by using your face. Look like a human being, act like a human being. And when your facial expression matches your tone, it can supplement it and make your message that much stronger. Purposeful gestures can make your points more vivid and understandable, but only if they are purposeful. You don't want to be throwing your arms around without any sense of direction. This can actually be very distracting. But when done correctly, it can help add clarity and energy to your delivery. Something as simple as a point or waving your arm across your body, when done purposefully, can help direct their attention in a specific manner. Next is controlled movement, which is similar to purposeful gestures, but this entails your entire body. For example, it is okay to walk up and down the stage, but only if there is a specific rhythm to it. You might want to pace a bit, stop, look at one part of the audience, say a point, and then continue pacing and then look at another part of the audience. Movement reinforces your authority and enhances your pacing. So this is another tip to enhance that pacing like we talked about earlier, is by using controlled movement, but do not overdo it. Just like purposeful gestures, if that is uncontrolled, if it is unpurposeful, it can become very distracting. Make sure you eliminate those fidgets like tapping on your pockets or playing with your keys. Finally, you want to master the hack that is pausing and holding still, which is a power move in your next presentation. Pausing helps to emphasize important points and allows your audience time to absorb your message. It should be used sparingly, though. But when it is used correctly, it can make a powerful statement, because now you are forcing your audience to take a few seconds to think about that big idea that you just presented to them. It might even be well used in the beginning, depending on whether you use a story or a powerful question. Here's a quick action step. Record yourself delivering a 2-minute speech. Then watch it back with the sound off and just focus on your body language. That way, you can take note of your posture, gestures, and the eye contact. Does your body convey that confidence, that authority? Does it command engagement from the audience? By listening, or rather watching your next speech with the sound off, you'll be able to pick up on your body language, which again is 50% of the communication. Our next section will be advanced communication strategies to help you negotiate, persuade, and hold frame and authority in those nuanced discussions that typically happen off the stage. Let's get right into it. For this section, let's focus on 2 challenges that all entrepreneurs and business executives must face. The first one being high pressure negotiations. When it gets hot, do you melt under pressure? Sometimes you can't afford to, especially when the pressure's on you in a group setting. Maybe you're giving a pitch or presentation to your board of directors. You need to be able to hold frame, and there is no room for you to be losing control in a high-pressure negotiation, because it will decrease your status in the eyes of your peers or in the eyes of your potential prospects. To handle high-pressure negotiations, we need to practice saying less than necessary. Avoid rambling, avoid oversharing. Now let's talk a little bit about why do we end up saying too much. This is a challenge that I've faced, and I can tell you that the number one reason that I've rambled in the past is a desire to explain or justify. I kind of just want to provide more information to make sure that there's no room for the other person to misunderstand with what I'm saying. But actually, by over-explaining, I found that I ended up weakening my message and revealing sensitive information, either about myself or about my organization. And you also take away that curiosity from your prospect, because you want to leave just a little bit of space for the other person to ask questions. And you want to make sure that the responses you give are concise. So again, do not feel like you have to justify. Do not feel like you have to ramble to provide them with extra information. If they want to know, they will ask. And there is a popular quote that I want to share with you, which is that one thing that nobody ever regretted was keeping their mouth shut. And this applies here. The second one is a fear of silence. If I were to take 13 seconds to be silent in this video, you might click off. But if you were to take 13 seconds of silence in your next conversation, you might find that the other person is uncomfortable with that silence, especially during negotiations. So what tends to happen is when it gets silent, the anxious person will fill up that space with words, and that anxious, unconfident energy lowers their status. Especially when you're negotiating a sale or you're divulging sensitive information in front of a board of directors, you want to just get comfortable with that silence and let your words stand on their own and look people in the eye during that silence and just smile. Project confidence in your statement and don't be afraid of a little bit of silence. If you can withstand that silence, it'll show your audience that you are comfortable with uncertainty. The third reason that people tend to share too much is that they think that saying more means more valuable. But this is not necessarily true. This is a false perception of value. In reality, to wrap high-pressure negotiations up, being concise and precise with your words demonstrates more authority and expertise, which is what you want to project in your next high-level, high-pressure negotiation. A quick action step, and this is something that saved my life on a few times. During your next high-pressure interaction, write down the key point that you want to make in 1 or 2 sentences tops. And then stick to this core message and resist the urge to elaborate. So, when someone asks for your perspective, you're going to remember or look at these 2 points that you've written down, and you're going to say just those 2 strong sentences. After you deliver your point, you're going to pause and let the other person respond. If it takes a few seconds, if it takes that aura of silence for them to give you that response, so be it. But you're going to want to give your words time to breathe in your prospect's mind. Make sense? Awesome. The second challenge that all high-level business executives or entrepreneurs must face when leading their teams is actually delivering bad news. It is something very painful that no one likes to do, but every leader must do it for the good of the team. Let's talk about it. How do you minimize the chances of a negative reaction to bad news? I want you to think about the last time that you gave bad news to somebody. Did it go the way that you wanted it to go? Did it project that authority, that respect that you wanted? Or did it kind of make you look immature? Did you lose yourself? Did you lose yourself emotionally in that interaction? We're going to cover a few techniques to make sure that doesn't happen again. First, you want to brace the other person or party for impact. You do not want to drop the bomb without a warning. This will give them a moment to prepare for the bad news. So you might want to lead with a statement like, "Hey, I've got to talk to you about something and it's going to be difficult to hear. Do you have a moment?" Just be straightforward and tell them that what they're about to hear is going to be difficult. That way they can emotionally prepare. Second step of this framework is to prepare yourself. So you're going to want to mentally rehearse what you will say before you have that interaction with them. And you have to be ready because depending on how serious the news is, you have to be ready for any reaction, whether it's shock, anger, or disappointment. You have to just remain composed throughout. You do not want to lose your emotional frame. The last thing you want to do is start throwing emotions back and forth. This will be unproductive and it will lower your status and sense of authority in the situation, especially if you're the leader, because everybody is looking at how you respond or behave. The third part of this framework is to get to the point. You don't want to rip off the bandage slowly. You want to avoid beating around the bush because this is only going to prolong the suffering. It's better to be straightforward in most cases, and I would bet you 9 times out of 10 that the other person would prefer it that way, instead of you trying to make them feel anxious or on the edge of their seat by prolonging that suffering. Finally, you want to avoid attack words. Words like, "You always do this," or "You never do this." Those words are very triggering, and it's actually the worst thing you can do when delivering bad news, because this will kill any chance of a productive exchange. You're actually going to flip on that defensiveness switch in people, because nobody likes to feel like they're worthless or incompetent. And using words like these trigger those feelings and later down the line, if you continue to use them, it might actually harbor feelings of resentment within your team, and your empire, your small team that you are a leader of, will proceed to crumble. And that's the last thing we want. So let's walk through an example of how to use this framework for your advantage. In this scenario, we're going to address an underperforming team member. We're going to call her Sarah, who missed an important deadline on your group project. First, we're going to brace Sarah for impact by saying, "Hey Sarah, I need to talk to you about the project timeline. This might be a tough conversation, but this is important. Do you have time?" What does this do? This allows Sarah a few seconds to emotionally brace for impact. She knows, something happened. Maybe I'm in trouble. But at least she knows that what's going to come out of your mouth next is going to be related to that. So start with that. Second, you want to prepare yourself by reminding yourself Sarah might be upset, defensive, or disappointed, and you want to prepare to remain calm and composed. If the other person in the interaction gives you a negative emotional reaction, you need to hold frame and you need to avoid being that person who throws bad feelings right back at them. Otherwise, you have lost the war. Finally, you want to get to the point. The deadline for that presentation was missed, and it put us behind schedule for the client meeting. This has created a few challenges for the team. Notice how not once in the sentence did I say Sarah's name or say you or always or never. I didn't use any attack words at all. And that is the next part. I understand that there were some obstacles, but it seems like communication could have been more clear. Let's work on finding a better approach for next time to avoid this. So now, instead of putting all the blame on Sarah, you turn this into a teamwork effort. You say, "It's me and you, Sarah, against the problem," which is a lack of communication. And I bet you, in this scenario, Sarah will be much more willing to help you, to be understanding, and to even take personal accountability by framing the confrontation this way. By following this framework, you get to the point, minimize defensiveness, and you focus on solutions, not blame. And you are perceived as a leader that people can be comfortable around, that people don't have to tiptoe around, that people can be honest with, because they know you're not going to blow up on them, and you're going to give it to them straight and respectfully. So, we've covered a lot of things in this presentation, but I want to circle back to the question, how will public speaking transform my life? So you are most likely a business executive or an entrepreneur. This is who this course is for high-performing individuals who want to be perceived as an authority in their field. We're going to answer this question together. Let's talk a little bit about your current state. As a high-level executive or entrepreneur, you might find yourself grappling with the pressure of public speaking or presenting your ideas effectively. The truth is, just because you're in a high-ranking position does not mean that you have gotten rid of the jitters that come with speaking in front of an audience, that come with having the spotlight on you, and this is completely understandable. And this pressure and framing your ideas effectively is a challenge that goes all the way up the ladder to your top CEOs and executives. And they often have someone helping them prepare them for these high-pressure presentations. You might feel that, despite your expertise, your message often gets lost, which leaves your audience disengaged or confused. You want to be perceived as an authority, someone who knows what they're saying, and someone who can persuade others to hop on board with your big idea. But because you are unable to craft your message and present your message effectively or communicate it at a high level, your audience is not giving you the reaction that you would like from them. Perhaps you've missed key opportunities due to hesitance in voicing your thoughts in critical meetings or pitches. I know sometimes when you have a big idea or something you want to share, you get this flame that rises inside of you. But sometimes it's hard for you to spit it out, or at least spit it out in a way that commands authority and respect. And in these critical meetings or pitches, the pressure is on, and it's very easy to get swept into your emotions and maybe even miss out on that key opportunity. Navigating difficult conversations might feel daunting for you, and this could lead to frustration and a sense of being unheard, especially if you strive to be a leader in your field. This is the last thing you want. You want to be able to dominate those difficult conversations with power and control at all times. And finally, you may sense that your influence is not as strong as it could be, hindering your ability to establish authority and command respect. Everybody wishes that they could be that person who commands influence, authority, and respect. But you're not sure how to go about that. So let's take some time and talk about your future state, what you could look like when you adequately take the time and put conscious effort and time into coaching as a high-level public speaker and executive communicator. Imagine being able to step onto any stage or enter any meeting room with absolute preparation and confidence, exuding that energy that I know what I'm talking about, and I'm going to make sure you know it. Picture yourself persuading those decision makers, captivating your audience, and commanding respect effortlessly, being that person in the room that when you walk in, people know that they're going to get something valuable out of you because you have subconsciously placed in their heads the idea that you are worth listening to. Your peers will admire you. Your haters will feel like idiots for doubting you, and you will feel like a winner because everybody wants to listen to you speak, and there's no better feeling. I would know. Are you sharing your big idea on stage? Are you building a strong personal brand in the corporate or professional world? Are you negotiating a big deal? Mastering your public speaking and communication will elevate your career and life in ways that you could not imagine. So I want to talk to you about the 6 levers again. It's not just about talking. It's about persuading, pitching, mobilizing your audience, influencing, being an authority, and controlling difficult conversations. Here is my offer to help you become a master of public speaking and executive communication. I want to focus on 3 things in the Speak with Power program. 1 is to write powerful presentations, speeches, or sales pitches. 2 is to deliver them with authority and impact, making sure that your audience will never forget what you delivered to them. And 3rd, master advanced communication techniques that set you apart as a leader and as someone that people want to follow. Let's talk about some testimonials. This is Abdulrahman. He's only 17 years old, and through my coaching program, we were able to prepare and script and rehearse a speech for him that he delivered in front of 200 people at his local mosque. He writes, "Muhammad, you took my speech to the next level. I appreciate it, man." And this is a testimonial I'm especially proud of because if I can help a 17-year-old high school student speak in front of 200 people at an extremely high caliber, what makes you think I can't help you? There's a link in the description if you'd like to watch his 20-minute sermon. How are we going to do this? My offer revolves around a 6-month membership program. It is a 3-part course, and the name of these 3 courses are Craft Your Message, Give a Killer Presentation, and Executive Communication. To craft your message, we're going to focus on the areas of speech organization, writing those strong hooks and closers, the art of storytelling, strong messaging, and I'll also be including my script templates for your next presentation, speech, or pitch. That way, before you even present, you have a strong body of work from which you can base your delivery on. Giving a killer presentation will revolve around your vocal delivery, things like volume, pacing, and tonality, as well as many other subjects. We'll also be covering body language, the art of audience engagement, how to get them to want to give back to you in an exchange, how to eliminate stage fright, and I'll also be including my personal slideshow templates that have gotten million-dollar nonprofits to say yes to me. In the executive communication course, we're going to cover negotiation, persuasion, how to handle conflict like a true CEO, and how to use your voice to sell. But it's not just a bunch of videos and links that you click on. It's also a weekly coaching call. On these weekly coaching calls, I create done-for-you presentations around any topic of your choice within public speaking. In this video, I coach Tyler on how to avoid oversharing in professional environments, which is something that we touched on earlier in this presentation, but I get very deep on it here in this video. And you can click the link in the description to watch this coaching session for free. In addition to the weekly coaching calls, we also do a monthly mastermind session with a public speaking master. This includes my personal public speaking coaches, as well as professionals in the industry that I've had the pleasure and privilege of connecting with. And I'll be connecting you all with them once a month in our group. Finally, you will, of course, have lifetime access to the course material, but not only the course material, a bi-weekly group call for that continued support to make sure that you are still hitting the mark and that you are reaching those goals month after month after month after month. Through this program, our goal is to help you craft your message, give a killer presentation, and become a communicator that is seen as a leader and authority in your field. So, if you are interested, if you are a business executive, if you are a high-ranking official, if you are an entrepreneur, and you want to be perceived as an expert in your field the next time you give a presentation, sales pitch, or speech, book a free consultation call by clicking the link in the description to see if you're a good fit, because there are limited spots available. And we also want to tailor this program specifically to the skills of each and every one of the people that are accepted. I look forward to hopping on this call with you to see if we can take your public speaking and executive communication to the next level, to make sure that the next message you deliver, everyone is begging to hear you speak again and waiting for you to give them a command. In this presentation, we covered things like the impact of high-level public speaking, how this will change your life, as well as my special offer. I would like to thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to talking to you on your free consulting call, again, to see if you are a good fit for our 6-month Speak with Power mentorship program. Have a great rest of your day.